Good morning. Gavin here at Amici Garage. Today we're talking about a Speedmaster catastrophe. I mean, hands down, the worst experience I've ever had. It's
laughable.
You laugh so you don't cry, I think is what they say, right? So I ordered these as a 440 top end kit. They're flat tappet top end kit. You get the heads loaded, valves and springs, retainers, you name it. Sets of rockers for the heads. Valve covers, a high rise, so to speak, single plane intake, some gaskets, some other, basically a plug and play. Take it out of our box, put your rocker assemblies together, measure your push rods. If you're watching this, you know the story of how it goes. But it's not a custom, it's not a, I bought this from here, this from here, this from here, I'm gonna make it work, right? If you were to do that, yes, you should. You'll have some work to do to get things to work together properly. This is advertised as not that. This is advertised as their top end kit. They're things that go together very nicely for this 440. So to help compare the disaster, I've got a stock set of cast iron 440 heads here. Their rocker on it. So these are just sitting on a table. There isn't push rods in, there isn't any of that. But I want you to get a look at how these sit onto the valve stems. They're also not shimmed. This is just for an example so that you can see how they all sit, right?
Pretty decent. This one is slightly off center.
Right.
Other than that.
Yeah, I haven't shimmed them. You know, they're not going to run on this head. This is for example only. Also, get a look at the height of the pedestal, the rocker shaft pedestal, compared to the height of the retainer on the spring, and how everything sits, right? In the back here, push rod geometry.
Looks decent.
You know, it looks pretty good, right? Good set of rockers. Now, let's come over to the Speedmaster head. Notice the pedestal height, which is almost nothing. And get a look at this. And that's not a bad one. This is a bad one. Now these rockers are hitting the retainer and the back side of the spring. Look at the gap in there. I mean, a quarter of an inch. Quarter of an inch and back. Now these are different, right? Intake, exhaust. Also, I want you to notice the gap in here, right? Now we come down, this one's actually touching, like it should be. There's clearance here,
Barely.
right? Back again, the gap, giant gap, giant gap. And then the far end, remember the first valve on that end had a pretty substantial gap. This one's actually almost touching, but hitting the back side of the rocker. So I called Speedmaster. They said, get us some pictures. So I emailed photos over and got no response back. Not an email like, hey, thanks for the photos, we're working on it. Nothing. So I call them the next day. Sit on hold for almost 20 minutes and asked the guy if he got my photos. He said, yeah, but what I'm thinking is there isn't a relief cut for the spring in the bottom back side of the rockers. Can you get me photos of that? Which I did, and they are cut. I mean, it's there, right? And that's what his thought was, where they weren't cut back here, and that's why they're hitting. So no, that's not the problem. He says, well, you need to clearance your rockers.
Here's a video on how to do it.
So they sent me a video. Now it started on Wednesday. It wasn't until Monday that I got their Stan the Rocker Man specialty guy. And he sends me a Mopar Joe video of not even really clearancing heads. And Mopar Joe never even had a rocker assembly or push rods near the head, let alone in it, showing any type of clearance for the push rods or any of that. So I brought the heads to a well-known engine builder here in Minnesota. It's Cheney Motorsports. He builds drag car motors. He's been doing it over 40 years. If the problem has been had, this guy has seen it and fixed it, right? So I brought him these, brought him in a shop, didn't really preface what I was dealing with. Just here you go. What do you think in case I'm a moron? You know, you never put it past yourself that you're not seeing the problem, right? He gets a look at him, sees the same thing you're seeing now, and can't believe it, calls their tech support. They tried to send him the same Mopar Joe video and then told him he needed to clearance the rockers. If you were to clearance the top inside of these rockers so that they would clear, there would not be a rocker arm left. There would be none. It just will not work.
Oh, it'd be bad.
So he at Cheney Motorsports asks their tech guy, well, what am I supposed to tell my customer? I can't put these heads together for him. There's nothing I can do. His response was, well, he could return them and go buy a set of heads that cost twice as much and have the same problems.
Fair enough. Okay.
Okay.
At least they'll work.
So now I know, okay, you know what? I'm returning these dang things. I give up, right? I can't. I'm just going to go to back cast iron heads, what have you, whatever I end up doing. So I call Speedmaster. I get Stan, the rocker man, who had emailed me earlier that day when I sent him photos and said, oh, I didn't see. His email back was, I couldn't open the attachments. I'm old. That was how much help I was getting from him. So I call to get the return, and Stan goes, well, what's going on? I said, Stan, I brought your heads to a professional shop. They agree. There's nothing that can be done with these.
Without spending a ton of money.
Yeah.
New valves.
Right. Could you go to smaller springs? These valves are an inch longer than stock valves, but they're also a different diameter. So, yes, you could spend a pile of money, but I bought a top-end bolt-together kit, not a, here's some stuff.
Let's do some custom work.
Yeah, if I wanted to do that, I could go, let's buy some trick flows or something. Let's get crazy.
Save my money for another couple of months and buy the good stuff.
And let's go crazy, right? If I wanted, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to get, the motor's going to be black, is black. I wanted to put aluminum heads, aluminum intake, have the contrast. The car is black. It was a dress-up kit for me. It's not a race car. I'm not trying to build mega horsepower. I want it to be pretty. That's all, right? Yep. So, I'm talking with Stan. I want to do this return. Stan tells me he doesn't want to argue with me. He's told me to clearance these heads.
Everybody else has made it work.
Everybody else has made them work.
You're the idiot.
Right. And then says, I'll get an email in 30 minutes with how to return them, which I have to pay for the shipping to return their garbage. And then he hung up on me. Astounding. To say the least, the worst customer service I have ever dealt with. You would think, if anything, right when I called and I sent pictures of this, they would have sent me a new set immediately.
Yep.
Or something along those lines is what I would expect from any of the other.
Or return your email, return your call, which they never did.
Which they never did for days and days. And I was trying not to explode. I mean, I took a week off of work to put this motor together, right? I had already purchased all the things, and this was going to be a great week in the shop, get this motor put together, maybe even put in the car. Instead, here I sit still with no direction. Had put one head on, so now I'm going to be buying new head gaskets again. I put a Facebook post on a Plymouth Duster group. Some photos, I've gotten a lot of comments. I appreciate them. And actually, Mopar Joe reached out, which I couldn't expected, right? So I wanted him to see this video too, so he can actually get a good look at, because it's hard to tell from photos what a guy is really dealing with. We could slide the push rod in from the bottom, so you could get an idea of push rod angle. It's very hard to see on the camera. But even if we just line it up, it's absurd. I mean, it would hit the dang valve.
Yeah.
So to speak, I mean, it's not even in the same country, nor are, and the fact that they're all different as far as they're off. Now, if we wanted to take the time, we could mic every one and go through all that. But if you're going to order their top end kit, don't. If you do order something from them, don't expect to use their customer service. If that, you can't even call it that. I mean, it was sad to say the least. They've been a company in business for a long time. It's not what I expected.
Right.
I also get a lot of comments of, yeah, you get what you pay for, this, that, and the other. I wanted it just for the looks.
Yeah.
And it should at least work. At bare minimum, should it perform like a trick flow? No. Did I expect it to? Absolutely not. I didn't. Should it at least bolt together?
And work.
And work?
As a kit? Sold as a kit?
Sold as a kit, boxed together as a kit. All the hardware was in there, the gaskets, minus the head gasket, intake gaskets. I believe there's even bolts for the intake in there. So you would think, wouldn't you think they would have at least set a set of rockers on their head before they shipped them out to a customer? Any quality control whatsoever? Apparently zero. It's just sickening.
Well, and if an average guy is doing this in his garage with minimal amount of tools, just trying to do a dress up on his motor,
right?
We have the ability in the shop here to clearance the rockers and stuff like that, but we know it's not going to work because you're going to take out so much material,
right?
Or you could send them off to a head shop, but this is supposed to be the budget, do it yourself.
Yeah. Could a guy add to these pedestals, weld them up, and recut them? Yeah, absolutely could. Re-CNC and all that. Would a guy do that on a set of Speedmaster heads? Absolutely not. That is not. This is a bolt together top end kit. $1,700 worth of paperweights is what I got.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Well, I suppose in the end you could just run their roller rocker on an iron head and call it good.
Absolutely. And
probably won't.
well, unfortunately, this puts me back to probably just going without aluminum heads, running the cast head, and
paint them silver.
Yeah, high temp, paint them aluminum or whatever. And more than likely, that's the direction I'll go. But that has nothing to, I mean, it's just the quality that came, the absence of any quality control, the absence of any customer service. I don't want to make this video either just bashing them over and over and over again, but it's so sad, it's laughable. You know, it's like I bought something off a marketplace. A pickup with a blown head gasket, and the guy didn't say anything, and then you try to get a hold of him and he doesn't respond. That's almost verbatim the treatment that I've gotten from a so-called reputable company. There I go bashing them again. They should knock it off. But you know, a guy gets that pissed off. You know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's how I felt, that I got a shady guy on marketplace. But I bought these directly from Speedmaster, not from eBay, not from a second, third party, directly from Speedmaster. That's the treatment that a guy gets there. So this is your warning. I'm going to take the hit on this one, pay the shipping to return it, and I guess we'll see what happens. I appreciate your time. Good luck. Let's do some burnouts, huh?
Sounds good.